the situation today, the new developments and what's going to happen next and what can people do, I think that's what's on everybody's mind, because there are two views as far as I can see. People who are thinking, oh, we shouldn't get involved at all, and people who are thinking this is a bit like, you know, the first step of the Second World War, and if we don't protect Ukraine, or if we don't do something, then the situation's going to develop, and when will it end? What should we do next?
Well, before we talk about that, I think we've got to assess this development and give it its appropriate weight. I think this is a major and highly significant development. It's an earthquake in the geopolitical arrangement that has stabilized the world for decades. It's a huge development. I think we should not underestimate its long-term impact. This is going to change the world. So before we proceed to talk about any specific action, I think we've got to look at it in the right context. Russia has acted as a bully. It has behaved in a way that has destabilized not only Ukraine, but I believe the whole of the security arrangement in Europe. This is very important for the world, not only for Europe, not only for the region. So why has it behaved this way? Because it was not stopped when it first started to behave like this. When a bully doesn't get stopped, the bully continues to upstage and upscale his game. So I think now it's a moment of truth. If Putin and Russia, the current Russian regime, is not stopped, if Europe and Western nations don't stand up to him, this will be a very bad development for the future, very bad omen. I think he's got to be stopped. So that's the first in terms of assessing the situation. Unfortunately, Ukraine is going to be the victim. It's going to be the sacrificial lamb. It should have been supported earlier, but it has not been. But now it's never too late to help. Ukraine should be supported to the hilt. If Putin is foolish enough to try and attempt a full occupation or a change of government or force a change of government in Ukraine and install a puppet government, I think the West should continue to support the Ukrainian people. Now, let me just clarify. I mean, I have every admiration and affection even for the people of Russia and the people of Ukraine. Russia is a land of Tolstoy, of Pushkin, of Maxim Gorky. We grew up on Russian literature. So Russian people themselves, I don't think they are interested in war. But we have seen a gradual hijacking of their will by a government that is keeping them in the dark and, excuse me, feeding them with bullshit. The media is totally under the control of the regime, and it just generates lies and tries to make people believe the unbelievable. I mean, whoever in the world is going to believe that the Ukraine represents a threat to Russia? Whoever in the world believes that the Ukraine is going to attack Russia? It is a stupid idea, but nevertheless, Putin has been trying to sell it to his people, and I'm sure he has managed to persuade so many, not because it's true, it is a blatant lie, but because there is no other channel of information for his people. So now this is what we are facing. We're facing a major military adventure. I believe that Putin has miscalculated. There will be a lot of victims, tragically and horribly, but he has miscalculated. In the long term. It might, in the short term, strengthen his power, and he might appear to be the all-powerful leader. But in the long term, he will be weakened, Russia will be weakened, and Ukraine will pay a high price. Now we come to what to do. Now it's the different levels. For governments, in the Western context, in the Western world, they have to have a backbone and stand up and be prepared to bear some pain for that confrontation and persuade their nations to accept that this is the price of protecting their freedom in the long term. At an individual level, you and me and our friends and people we know, I think we have to, all of us, try to put pressure on our representatives in parliament, in government, to stand up, to be strong, to be equal to the challenge, not to go wobbly on Putin. This is the time to be strong. There is going to be pain, and the pain has to be shared. But without that pain, everybody would be sunk, and the future would be very, very dark indeed for everybody.
Do you think that's going to persuade them? Because at the moment, I think maybe people are worried about waging war on Putin because of the repercussions on their countries, because he sent a strong warning this morning.
I don't think it's a matter of waging war on Putin. This will not be done. I don't think it's the right thing to do, and I don't think it's even warranted. What is needed is to absolutely isolate Putin and his regime, to expose him, and to make sure that he pays a high price, and to help the people of Ukraine to resist and to regain their freedom if they should lose it under this military onslaught.
So that's the question of how do we stop Russia, though?
Well, you cannot stop Russia militarily now with Western might, because that could lead to a much bigger confrontation and could go out of control. So that is not on the table. What is on the table is to stiffen the resistance of Ukraine, give it every possible support, make sure that Putin loses the information war. And that should be easy, because he's armed with lies and the rest of the world are armed with the truth. So it would be tragic if he wins the information war. So that's the first thing. Secondly, the economic war has to be won against Russia. Russia is a giant militarily, but it's really a dwarf economically. And I think that should be even more exaggerated. He should pay a price, and not only the Russian people, but Putin personally and the oligarchs who are around him, because then for them, that will hit them where it hurts. And I think that will push some of the people around him to think again.
So, yeah, I would agree with that analysis. And it's always the case that full-on onslaught is going to be far less effective than isolating the extremists. That's been my experience in general. So do you think there's enough that we could do to stop them in this way?
Well, I think any one single individual cannot do much, but collectively and in an organized way, I think the pressure should mount from every possible area, town, region, country, and if that is done in an organized way, I think it will put pressure on the governments of each country to take the right position and to take notice of what the people feel on this issue. Politicians have to be responsive to public opinion. They have so far shown the right instincts, but that has to be kept up. The information I have in the UK, for example, is that only a few people have been sanctioned around Putin, and these people have already been sanctioned by the Americans before. So this is a weak move. It has to be done much more comprehensively and much more decisively.
So what's stopping them, do you think? Why do you think they've been so weak on sanctions so far?
Well, I cannot be sure, but there have been some accusations that some of the Russian money, which is in England, has managed to create a lobby, especially with the Conservative Party. Now, I don't have any evidence of that, but this is an opportunity for the Conservative Party to come out and be clear and be transparent and show that this kind of backdoor access for Putin's criminals should not sway their policymaking.
I think it's a great opportunity for them to do just that. Do you think China could play a role in this? Actually, could play a positive role in this. Do you think that's possible?
This is a very important question, and it's a very interesting situation for China. China instinctively allies itself with Putin because Putin has come out as anti-Western player. And China has been engaged in some kind of a confrontation, of course, not a military confrontation, with the West, and especially the United States. So in the recent visit by Putin to Beijing during the Olympics, they issued a joint declaration proclaiming everlasting friendship and love. And we have seen this romance develop in the past, and also we've seen it fade and collapse. But right now, China has made some noises about understanding Putin's security concerns and the need to satisfy them, etc. But China has always been very strong on a few points. One is the principle of non-interference in the internal affairs of others. Because they, if your house is made of glass, you don't start throwing stones. So they don't want other people to raise issues which relate to internal affairs in China. By the same token, they don't want this to be a principle that is ignored in other countries. But Putin is doing just that. He is interfering in other countries' internal affairs. He is trying to change the political system in a sovereign country. So that's one thing. Secondly, China has always been very sensitive about supporting any separatist movement. There is a separatist movement in Tibet, there is a separatist movement in Xinjiang, and they have come down like a ton of bricks on each, and they hate anybody even indicating any support to these so-called separatists. They, of course, also consider Taiwan as part of China, and any move to try and separate it, they are prepared to fight tooth and nail. Now,
so just on that, do you think that
in Ukraine, let me just finish this.
Yeah.
In Ukraine, what Putin is doing is exactly the opposite. He is supporting the separatists in Ukraine. So this goes against the grain for the Chinese. So the Chinese now, that's my reading, the Chinese find themselves in a rather delicate spot. If they support Putin, they are going against the principles themselves adhere to. If they don't support him, well, what's the meaning of that long declaration which they signed in Beijing?
Talking about China and Taiwan, do you think that Putin might have been able to persuade the Chinese that Ukraine was Russia's Taiwan?
Impossible. I don't think so. Taiwan is very different from China, from Ukraine. Ukraine is a recognized full member of the United Nations. Taiwan is not. Taiwan is not recognized by so many countries, just a few countries recognize it, whereas Ukraine is recognized by every country in the world. So it's a very different situation.
Okay. Do you think that? I mean, this is really interesting. I'm just wondering if there's any upside for the Chinese if they actively, for example, issue sanctions against Russia. I'm thinking about the potentially unheard of, because he, like you said, he has interfered with another country's business, and he has supported separatists, and they're both against Chinese ideologies and principles of governance. Do you think that there could be an upside to China? Because I think China is not feeling the warm fuzzies from everyone globally, and maybe there are reasons for that. But do you think that they see that there could be an upside, and do you think there could be an upside for China? Can we?
Yes, there is, but it's not on the political front, and it's not on the economic front. Now, China is always hungry for energy. When the sanctions hit Russia, it will have less scope for export. So here is a mutual interest. The Russians can export gas and oil to China, and China will gratefully receive that, and this will serve both sides. And this will ease the isolation of Putin following this adventure. So yes, there is some upside, if you call it upside, for China and for Russia to stay close. But it remains to be seen how.
I was asking a different question. I was asking whether there is any upside to China not being close to Putin. Any upside for China? So if China,
if they reject this military intervention, then at least they will look consistent in their international posture. They will say, we are always against supporting separatists. We are always against non-intervention in other people's political internal affairs. And we are always against resolving political differences by force. So if they can come out looking nice and shiny and white, if they take this position, and then that would help them in the arguments when it comes about these issues relating to China. So yes, they could take that position, but I don't think they will. They will not come out clearly and condemn Russia, not at this stage in any case.
So many people want to support the Ukraine now. Ukraine, it's an old habit. Ukraine, not the Ukraine. It's very important. It's very, very important to Ukrainians to refer to it as Ukraine and not the Ukraine, which is a separate topic. But it's very important to support Ukraine now, and people want to support it, and people want to do something. They're feeling that this is wrong, and that they can see that someone's being bullied, and they want to support them. What can they do? What can a typical person do?
Just keep nagging your representatives, write to your MP, organize meetings and publicize them, write to newspapers, make your opinion known, but most importantly, put pressure on the politicians.
And we're putting pressure on them specifically to harden the financial measures.
To harden all the measures that will diminish Russia's ability to expand this adventure and continue with it.
Do you think sanctions, like, so specifically sanctions, do you think, like, what sort of shape should sanctions take?
It should, well, I have been in two minds about sanctions for many years. Sanctions tend to hurt the people and not so much hurt the system or the leaders. Sanctions, therefore, should be tailored and made more targeted. So this is a specialist area, and I don't think this is the right time to discuss it. But,
sure.
But it's important to make Putin pay a price, a heavy price, a painful price.
I think there's, the reason I'm sort of sticking on the sanctions bit is I think that there's been a disagreement and a confusion about sanctions and the detail of what they should take. And I think this is causing a very big delay in getting strong sanctions being put into place.
We have already seen some very important steps. The Germans, admirably, have put on the shelf this northern gas line. That is a major step that will cost Germany a lot of money. So in that sense, some significant and meaningful steps have been taken. So
not by the UK.
Well, not yet by the UK. The UK doesn't have that pipeline coming to it. So they have other means. The UK can now sanction key Russian companies, key aids for Putin, and also Russian oligarchs who have transferred their money to the UK, even if they've put a lot of that money in the names of their wives, relatives, cousins, or other people. I think they should track the money and they should get to it. And they know how to do it.
Yeah, I think they're quite good at that, aren't they? They can seize, they could even seize Bitcoin and whatnot and cryptocurrency. So I think they can do it, and hopefully they will. Do you have any other thoughts that you'd like to share?
No, just watch the events and raise your voice. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.